All right, moving on. Andreas says, happy holidays. I run a digital agency UK providing SEO, web, and app development. Wondering if it's a good idea to have a write for us section on my agency blog where I can accept contributor articles that are informational only and will be carefully checked for, or excuse me, all will be carefully checked for quality, and I won't allow any promotional links and charge publishing fee. Do you think that is a good idea, or will I get a penalty? No, I wouldn't do that. And the reason why is because I've been testing, well, for the last 6 months or so, I've been doing a ton of link building with all different kinds of links. But prior to that, I spent about 6 months testing guest post links from a very specific service, and I got taken, man. I spent about $4,000 on guest post links and found out that only about 40% of them were valid. I mean, I got links on all of them, but only about 40% of them were worth a shit, because the other 60% of them were, on what they call orphaned pages, or what is called an orphaned page, which means they'll sell you on metrics and say, okay, you can buy a guest post on this. The metrics that you could purchase were either DA and PA, domain authority metrics, or you were buying traffic metrics, one or the other, right? There was two different kind of like scales that you could purchase links from. And so if I was to go buy an article on either one of those, 1,000 plus per month, traffic metrics, or a DA 40 plus site, and then I purchase spend $200 or $300 or whatever it was on a guest post link, and then 3 weeks, a month later, it gets delivered, and I go check the metrics. Of course, when it's first initially published, a lot of the times you won't see any metrics, especially if it was just published. But if you go back to it 3-4 weeks later and there's zero metrics, then it means that there was no internal linking from that site to that post. So in other words, they published a post on the domain, but there was no internal links. There was no way to get to that without you knowing the URL. There was no way to get to that page or that post from the site itself, like through navigating in the site. Like there was no internal links to it. And so they sell you on the metrics, but then they sell you they publish it on an orphan page that has no internal metrics, which means you're not benefiting from any of the metrics from the domain anyways. So it was bullshit. You could have just gone out and created a free WordPress or Blogger or Web2 account and published a well-tuned article on that you developed in-house, and it would have done better than a link from an orphaned page on a site. Does that make sense? So the reason I started telling you all that is because throughout that process, which again, I spent about $4,000 and I pissed a lot of that away. And that's why when it comes to guest post providers, guys, you got to really, really vet your providers before spending a lot of money with any one of them, which is what I learned. It was a painful lesson, but I learned. Buy one guest post, get it delivered, and then check it and monitor it for a couple of weeks. Make sure that it starts to receive link equity from internal linking, right? And so that the metrics should start to improve automatically because it was published and it has internal linking. It's going to inherit some of the, the authority from the site if there's internal links pointing to it. Even if it's just one internal link, at least that's something. So, but throughout that process of kind of discovering that guest post providers can really screw you, I found out that also on a lot of those sites where you can buy a guest post, they say, write for us, or, submit a post or whatever. There's certain lines of text that can be easily discovered, right? Because you can do a Boolean search in Google and find sites that have that published on their site somewhere, like write for us. Well, those are clearly people selling guest posts, and that is frowned upon by Google. So Google can very easily flag that site as any links coming from that site as being, for manipulation purposes, for search manipulation. So they can flag those. They can either become toxic links or they just won't give you credit for it. So my point is, don't do that. If you wanted to place a link onto a site that has that, write for us or publish a post for us or whatever, however they word it, it all means the same thing. It means, hey, we accept other people's articles for a link for linking purposes, if that makes sense. So I don't recommend doing it. Now, I know you're mentioning that you wouldn't do that, that you might say that what won't allow any promotional links and you charge a publishing fee. I mean, again, it depends on what it is that what your intent is for all of that. But I can tell you right now, it's very easy for Google to just determine that sites are, essentially selling links by, with the real simple, algorithmically, they can determine it really easily by just looking for stuff like right for us. You know what I'm saying? You see how it says right for us section, like, so things like that. That's what I'm saying. Just be careful, guys. If you're looking for other people to post content on your site, but you're not looking to sell links, then that might be different. But generally what I'm saying is it's very easy to determine. Guys, think about this. A lot of those guest post providers, they just go to Google and do Boolean searches to find sites that say right for us. And then they do outreach to those webmasters and say, hey, look, we'd like to publish articles on your site. Would you accept it? And of course they're going to say, yeah, sure. It's $20. And then they turn around and they sell them for 100. You know what I mean? So it's just better off if you're going to do that kind of a strategy, do it. I would have some sort of other method for requesting articles or, soliciting for writers to publish posts instead of just publishing something like that. Again, if you're not actually selling links, then it might not be detrimental, but I don't have any experience with that. All I have is experience with link sellers. And in some cases, those kind of right for us type blogs end up becoming toxic links, right? Because they've been flagged for manipulative, selling links to manipulate Google search results. So anyway, I know that was a long-winded answer, but I'm just trying to save some of you guys from, I'm not saying guest posts are bad. What I'm saying is you got to vet the provider. End of story. Like, had I known all that when I said, and I didn't, I just didn't know. I just trusted the service that I was using, and I spent a lot of money. And only about, like I said, 4 out of every 10 links that I bought were valid links. 6 of them were orphaned pages, which means I got a post on a site on an orphan page that had no internal metrics, that then in order for that link to be valuable at all, I had to build a bunch of links to that guest post URL. Does that make sense? So what's the point of that when you could just go publish a well-tuned article on a free web 2 or on one of your branded entity assets, Blogger, Tumblr, WordPress, whatever, and then, power that URL up, right? Power up that post on one of the web 2s. If you're going to have to build links to it anyways, why spend $200, $300, $400 on a guest post link that you have to power up, right? The whole point of spending that kind of money on a guest post is that it's a powerful link. But if they put it on an orphan page, guess what? It's worthless. It's worthless. And I found out the hard way, and I'm just trying to prevent you guys from going through that same shit. All right. Hopefully that makes sense. Lucas says, Merry Christmas, Semantic Mastery. Merry Christmas to you as well. Wondering what your opinions are about dynamic text elements like the date and time in the footer or header. Do they help with freshness? I don't know. I haven't really tried to manipulate that. I mean, I know there are some plugins that will take old posts and refresh them, like republish them so that they appear to be fresh content and that kind of stuff. And I know that used to have an effect, and it may still. It's not something that I test for, as kind of a factor to manipulate. Because generally for all my clients, we do regular blog posting anyway, so it's not an issue. For lead gen sites, yeah, I mean, a lot of lead gen sites, we don't do any posting once they rank other than Google business posts. But yeah, I mean, we usually stop blogging once they're ranked for lead gen stuff. And maybe it might be worth testing that. I haven't really done any testing with that in several years, Luca, because for clients, we regularly publish new content for clients anyway. So I don't know if that makes sense.